Yeah, but it's going to take a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Should I share it around?
Yeah, go ahead. Let me see if it's working.
Hey, everybody. Glad you're here. You automatically share in Soulogy, right?
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Yeah, it's multi-stream.
Great. I don't have to
So
share
it's
it on
live
one.
on, yeah, it's live on every platform independently.
And then I'm going to shut off Facebook so we don't get all the pings. How are you today? Do we memo each other to wear red day? We need some grounding cords.
It's the root chakra
Uh-huh.
coming on.
I brought this beauty came to hang out with us too.
That's a cool color.
Yeah.
Is that an Andara?
Yeah. I guess I needed some red today.
There's no mistakes.
No. I even got my Peace on Earth red coffee tea mug.
All right.
Shaken.
So we got, what did we get ourselves into? We had a partial lunar eclipse.
I know. I asked. Thank you for having me on today. When you had asked me what date I wanted to come on, I chose this day because it's the halfway point between the lunar and the solar. I figured we could cover. So they're always 2 weeks apart, lunar and solar eclipses.
Really?
In the moon windows, yeah.
I didn't know that.
The partial, well, for the moon calendar, moon cycles. So one's on a new moon, one's on a full moon.
Okay.
So can you believe it was only a week ago? The lunar eclipse was? It feels like a million years ago.
All I know is October was the most hellacious shift ever. And then 11/11 came, and then the lunar eclipse came. And then yesterday I woke up and I thought, I was fine in every way except physically. I was just like totally exhausted, depleted. And then today I woke up and I feel fantastic. So I don't know. I guess that's the energy of the eclipse coming or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the halfway point. It's halftime.
It is halftime. It's halftime in a lot of ways.
And tomorrow it starts back.
That's funny. There was a fair amount of football on the television at my house yesterday. We had Thanksgiving at our house. So I had my in-laws and I was in kitchen pumping out food out of my kitchen mode all day yesterday. So at the end of the day, I was beat. See, we even have red mugs. We're such cute geeks. Match a salute.
Everything's red today.
Well, I'm going to talk about Antares.
I even have a red.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the star that the solar eclipse is near is Antares, which is the heart of Scorpio.
Oh, wait a minute. I got to tell you something first.
Okay.
I thought about you, but it was too intense. So I walked outside about 3 a.m. and saw the lunar eclipse.
Nice.
And when I looked up, the Pleiades was right above it. And my star, Aldebaran, was...
Yeah.
They were all right there. Orion.
Yeah.
It was very cool. Yeah, go ahead. Antares. That's a pretty
what was too intense? When you said, just like
the
that
moment.
Coolness that they were, the moon was right there.
Well, the whole energy of it.
Yeah.
Because it happened for me after midnight, and I stayed up talking to Morgan. And you know what was crazy? This was crazy. I had already gone out there, and we started talking. No, she sent me a picture of the eclipse, and she told me to go outside. I said I already went outside, but for some reason, she wanted me to go outside. So I went outside, and it was still visible for me, very visible. So we have 2 pictures from, other side of the world.
Oh, you're like cross coding.
Yeah, and the like the fingernail part of it, the part that's blacked out.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It was diagonal from the pictures. I should post them.
Yeah, that's
because in that moment, it was one of those moments where you just got this huge download. You don't know what it is, but it just comes like in peace, in clarity, but you don't even know what it is. You just know you just got upgraded. There's been a lot of upgrades there to me.
Yes, I agree with that. And for my locale, I did wake up in the threes whenever the eclipse was starting. And then I went to look, and we had rain, cloud cover. And I was like, oh, okay, good reason to get back in bed because there wasn't anything to see. But then I was awake with it. So I was in bed, but I was awake. And then I kind of rolled over and I looked out the window and I was like, wait, that's a star. Because I wear, spectacles, like, right? So if I'm in bed without them, I was like, is that a star I see? Is that clear sky? At like 5 a.m. So I like run outside in my like, not really flip-flops, but I was like shin deep, like not well dressed, shin deep in wet, freezing leaves. And I was like, I could see it in my backyard. And so I had like a little break between like 5 a.m. and 5:30.
Wow.
It got crystal clear.
That's crazy.
I got to see the Pleiades and the Aldebaran and the eclipse of it, like and then it clouded back over and started raining again. So I had this like, just like this clear window of getting to see it, which was really exciting for me.
So that would have been like 4:30 in the morning. And so that would have been like an hour and a half. And it was pretty far up in the sky. It was already, headed down. So it was like at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. But if you saw it an hour and a half later, and she would have seen it even more the later time went on. So does that happen often? I mean, can you always see the moon from, like, let's say Australia and the United States at the same time?
Yeah, it's cool. So the lunar eclipses you can see on a wide swath of the globe because it's the sun, the earth is between the sun and the moon, and it's the earth's shadow on the moon. So it's like, it's visible. It's like really like half the globe, like from where Morgan was to like kind of where I am, that whole Australia, Pacific Ocean, the whole continental North America, and that whole section, you could see the eclipse was visible. The solar eclipses are very much more, the pathway of where you can see them is much more targeted because it's the moon between the sun and the earth, and it's like it's a small swath of visibility.
Wow, that's trippy.
But yeah, that's cool. It's like very uniting when my sister does a lot of traveling or has, and when she's like in Chile or she's in Madrid, it's like we can see the same moon. My brother lives in California, but yeah, it's a nice connector point for humans across the globe, seeing the moon at the same time.
So what does the little eclipse, this period, what does that mean? What does it bring in?
The eclipse corridor?
Yeah.
So much opportunity. In general, eclipses are a reset, and they work on the grids of the earth and our own human forms as kind of like, remember when like the Control-Alt-Delete on your computer, when your computer gets like stuck, you can like reboot it.
Yeah.
Or the reboot button. To me, they work that way. In the they work with the ionosphere, meaning the charged part of the atmosphere. When people talk about reading the Schumann resonances and that thing, they're reading the charge in the ionosphere. So especially for solar eclipses, when the solar eclipse comes, it gets darker, the temperature drops, and the charged particleness of the air above the pathway, it's like the birds and the animals, like humans, we all get that like feeling of like, oh, it's it's nighttime, or like something is happening.
I remember that happened in September 2017 because I was in Utah in the mountains.
It was
and we didn't get the total darkness because
it was like August 21st.
Was it August 21st?
Mm-hmm.
And
2017.
But you're right, because it was only fully visible in the path of it, but and where the path was, it went totally black.
Yeah.
Like in Washington State, it went totally black. And I was in Utah, and I was on a mountain, and it went this weird purple. It was crazy.
Cool. Yeah, here it was a part, like we could only see part of it. So that the path of totality, they call it, is the swath across the globe, across the map of where it gets completely dark and where the shadow falls. So that we're having a total solar eclipse on December 4th, a week from today. Today's Friday.
Yeah.
At least here it's Friday. I don't know where it is in other parts of the globe, but we're here. So a week from today on December 4th. And the exact time of it is it's like 5:30 UTC. So here it's 2:30 a.m. So it's another in the middle of the night thing. But the place on the Earth where it's visible, yeah.
But how does that work? If it happens when the sky is dark, do we actually see anything?
So the only places on Earth where you can see the totality of this path is on Antarctica. This is a South Pole situation. So the path of totality, and I'll put some maps up in the comments after this if people want to look. The path of totality it starts South Atlantic and kind of like wraps around and moves across the Antarctic continent. People in the southern tip of Chile and Argentina, South America, a little bit of South Africa, and the southern part of Australia, like Victoria, Melbourne, can see the partial eclipse. So you have to be like for instance, you were talking about the 2017 eclipse and how it was totally black on that like line across North America. But here up in Massachusetts, I could see it partially, right? Yeah. So the people on the southern tip of the southern hemisphere will be able to see a partial eclipse, but we won't be able to see anything from our north of the equator vantage point here. But we'll feel it for sure. So I would talk to you about this a little bit before, but I wanted to go into it a little deeper. So this whole going across the South Pole thing is super significant. Also because you might remember on June 10th, we had another solar eclipse.
Yes.
And that one went across the North Pole.
I remember you talking about it.
So this is like, we're on this bookend. So this polarity thing we're getting to be completely reset in the magnetic grid of our being, of our planet, with these two eclipses. So
that sounds very cool. That sounds like almost like masculine, feminine, all polarities magnetically coming into balance, because this is bigger than us. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. I mean, it may not have been an easy ride, but it feels pretty good. And for this to be happening right after 11/11, going into December, which is always big because of the solstice, and because of the numbers, the ones and the twos, and New Year's, and then 1/11, and then 1/11 and 1/1 January. But
so are you familiar with the concept of the axis mundi? Have you heard that term before?
I've heard that term.
So it's the spine of the Earth, or a lot of ancient cultures talk about the center of the Earth. So if we were talking about it in the human form, in the Vedic scriptures, they talk about the Sushumna Nadi, the central channel of the energy body. But the Earth body also has a central channel, like the major nadi, the major energy cord. So the axis mundi is often represented in a lot of the stories as like a giant mountain, like Mount Meru or Mount wherever your culture is, the tallest mountain around you, or trees or towers. So like the central axis of the Earth, which connects heaven and earth, connects cosmic realms, celestial realms, and terrestrial realms. So that's what I've been called, this whole eclipse thing. Like you were saying, the masculine and feminine, and positive, negative, the polarity of so I think folks know that the human body works like a pole magnet, meaning like a north and south. So the north pole of your body, and then the perineum, the pelvic floor, or the area between your feet, is the other side of the magnet. And the Earth has the same thing too. Right? The North Pole magnetically is our geographic North Pole is actually the southern magnetic pole, if that makes sense. So the South Pole is like what lets in current, and the North Pole is what pushes out. So our geographic, the bottom of the Earth, if you will, the South Pole, is actually the magnetic North Pole. But anyway, a lot of folks talk about that whole pole shift, but it's really about being, I keep hearing like, it's like for us to all be bipolar or dipolar, like to be comfortable with either of those.
Right.
You know, like to be able to switch back and forth.
Yeah. That makes sense. To be able to be whatever that is, like these things that have been on the other end of the spectrum, and from our perspective, they're all coming into the same place. Or like you said, I think that's better described when you said you can go back and forth comfortably.
Well, how that's helpful is that also at the same time, we're having all this solar activity, right? We had part of why October was so intense. We had the X-class flares, M-class flares, C-class flares, and a lot of solar production. So the solar cycle 25 is what the scientists call it, the solar scientists, that we are in a new solar cycle. And how they identify that is the polarity of the sunspots on the sun. Like the solar cycle 24, which ended. And we don't know these things. We have to kind of look in hindsight to know, because we're kind of
they don't come in. They don't come in the same increments. They come in different increments.
Well, how they determine what solar cycle we're in is the polarity of the solar activity. So what I'm saying is, like, the solar cycle 24, the sunspots, the solar activity is a certain polarity, like plus minus. And then when we switch into another sun cycle, the polarity of it flips. And I think that's part of why we have to learn as a species to be comfortable with that kind of, that it's fuel, it's source, it's resource coming to us, the solar energy. But when it flips, it can make people a little out of sorts, if you will. Like, how are you more comfortable with this new solar food or solar nourishment that's coming our way? Because it really is the code of life, the source of life, the sun. So there's a way that I feel like it's preparing us for, to be comfortable in all realms of polarity. Does that make sense? Or magnetism?
No, it does to me. It feels like, this is that energy or whatever that's bigger than all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great explanation. I mean, you're like the Stephen Hawking of Soulogy. But that's interesting. I saw some stuff this past week on astrotheology, and I've looked into it from time to time. Jordan Maxwell does some in-depth stuff on it. But this was just a quick little video, and it was talking about, it started with Christianity or the Jesus story, and then it went back, I would say, like 2 generations, but it was like 2,000 years before and 4,000 years before. And like the second one was this icon with his name started with an H, and it was well documented. It was in artwork, and it was written, and it had the same story. There was 12 apostles, or everything was identified the same: 3 kings, Virgin Mother, the whole 9 yards. And it correlated with the winter solstice and the equinoxes. Okay. And so when they looked into it, it was very obvious that it was based on the sun and the stars. So I thought, wow, that's trippy. So is this an overlay for the realm, or let's just say for the Earth experience, knowing that there's other experiences, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And as I pondered the question, I was like, well, you just don't know. That could be God we're looking at.
Yeah. Well, it's in many of how many cultures, like Egyptian culture, and like the Ra, the worshiping of the sun as Father God, the sun as source of life. When you were talking about that, the whole 12, the diaspora of the 12 comes up a lot, right? Whether it's in Lemuria, they talk about the tales of the golden solar discs and the 12 of them being spread out across the globe as record keeping, right? So to like spread, and then in Atlantis, the tales are of the 12 master crystals being spread out across the globe, one of which you're sitting on there in Arkansas, like the 12 crystals, or it's the 12 apostles, or the 12 tribes of Judah, or the diaspora of the 12.
What is it? What is it in the stars? Is it the zodiac signs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then for the lunar eclipse, I was watching that, and I was sharing out about it a lot on my Facebook and in my communities, about how the moon went through and visited each of the planets before it did the eclipse. It had to me, I was watching, so the moon stationed itself next to Mars, and then Mercury, and then then it was Venus, Pluto, and so on and so on. And then right before it eclipsed last week. And it had a feeling of that, like a lot of the people talk about the soul retrieval work or gathering the pieces of the soul that lost parts of your tribe, the lost, unifying your own soul story. So whether it's, whether you do a 23andMe DNA thing to figure out where you are from your human form, like the DNA lines, it's the 12 strands of the DNA too, or the 12 soul stories, soul aspects. And then if you can, galactically that goes too. So it's that
It's all in the 12.
Unifying it all back together in the 12.
Yeah, it's all in the 12.
So whether it's a council of, around the knights around the round table, or apostles at the Last Supper, or 12 zodiacs, or 12 crystals, it's that act of like meeting all aspects of yourself.
Yeah.
And embracing them.
Yeah.
That's the soul story to me. That we're like
it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. Just a continued spiral expansion, and I think we get to the point where we can create our own universes.
Completely. We're doing it.
That's what I feel like.
So can I geek out a little bit on where the sun is? Like where the so you were talking about going out under the
go on a geek streak, be a freak.
But it's not that.
Seek
I could be more geeky than this. But you was talking about your experience of going out under the moon and seeing Aldebaran and the Pleiades, and like where. So to me, what I'm shown to pay attention to is where these things happen in the sky, like where on the celestial sphere. If we were sitting in a planetarium of the Earth, and we see on the sky. So the sun, when it does its eclipse thing, even though most of us, unless you live in Antarctica, which I doubt, I don't know, does Soulogy reach that continent, Todd? I don't think so. That's your one hanging. But anyway, most of us won't be seeing it with our eyes, right? So you don't have to go out and buy solar eclipse glasses for this one. But the where it's happening in the sky is in the constellation of Scorpio. So I'll say this to all my astrologer friends, because inevitably someone will post a comment about, I thought it was in this sign. So what we're talking about is where it is in the sky and what constellation, which is different than what astrological house it's in, right?
Okay.
So we were looking if you could see, the sun's out, so you're not seeing stars because it's sunny. But if you could see the stars around the sun, it would be the star Antares, which is, they call it the heart of the Scorpio, the heart of Scorpio. And Mercury is so Mercury and the sun are conjuncting this weekend, November 28th, 29th.
Oh, it's going to be a sexy weekend.
And then right there,
is that Mars? That's Mars.
And then Mercury is right near the sun when it eclipses also, which was also true in June. I was looking this up just now before we got on this. So that like Mercury is doing a thing also with the planet. So the Antares, the heart of the Scorpio, that's not a star that I've heard from a lot. Like it's not one that I've read about or investigated or listened to star codes about until this alignment. So I was like, oh, I'm going to check it out. So I was reading about it. In the Greek mythology, the goddess Gaia sent the Scorpio to Orion. So Orion was going on this killing spree in the mythology, and he was going to kill all the animals on the planet. So Gaia, the goddess Gaia, the earth goddess, sent Antares over to Orion to stop him, kill him. And then somehow at the end of the myth, she put both of them up as stars in the sky, but they're across from each other. So like Scorpio and Orion are directly across from each other, which makes sense because, they're antagonists, if you will. The other creation story about Antares is they often, in the Hawaiian Islands, in the Pacific Island mythology, they call Scorpio the fish hook. And they talk about Maui. Anyone who saw the movie Moana, anyone who hangs out with little kids, that Maui, that goddess, is that hook of Maui, like dug the earth up from the ocean floor in the Pacific and created the islands of Hawaii. So anyway, those are just some of the myths about Antares that exist in our human. But so the sun being there has that heart of the Scorpio thing. It's like really illuminating that part of us that is the
What's the characteristics of Scorpio, or does that apply?
Yeah, probably. You know, it has that stingy. Oh, there's another interesting thing. Did you see in Egypt that they had this torrential flooding mid-November, and that they had
Oh yeah, and all the
all the
scorpions
Scorpios
came
come
out.
out. That,
Yeah.
like, I put those together and somehow in my brain of all this, and I was like, interesting times. You know, so Scorpio is like that fierce protection slash stinging slash
It's like the energy is telling you what's going on at all times, and we're cluing into that and reconnecting at every level.
right.
And to include being consciously connected like this, because it's only going to expand. You
But
know what I
so that
mean?
there's something about, so there's a thing about the venom of the Scorpio, which is, of course, can be problematic to humans if they get stung by it. You know, it's a deadly thing, and there's anti-venom and all that. But I was reading this great article when that happened in Egypt about how they actually milk scorpions for the venom because they're using the venom to treat cancer, to treat, like, it's so powerful. It has this like stoppage quality to it for tumor cells and for other things. You know, like anything in moderation, right? If it's too much of it, it's a poison, but in small amounts it can be actually used medicinally.
Wow.
So
I got bit by a scorpion when I was 18 years old working at a liquor store.
yeah.
I thought I was going to die.
What was it? So that's,
I
you know
never
more about the energy of Scorpio than I do. What happened?
no, I was working in this liquor store while I was going to school, and I reached down to pick up a box, and I felt something sting my hand, and I pulled my hand out, and this scorpion came out from behind the box. I'd never seen a scorpion. I'd only heard that they were deadly or whatever, so I
Yeah,
started screaming.
how
I
big
started
was it?
screaming. It was
Like,
probably about this big,
oh geez, that's big.
and I started screaming. I got bit by a scorpion. I got bit by a scorpion, and Robert Garcia says that explains a lot, Todd. but but I didn't know, and so everyone started laughing at me and said
Oh.
I was going to be fine. So I guess they knew that that wasn't like a potent scorpion species. It was in Dallas, but yeah, it was quite embarrassing. My finger didn't even swell up, but it hurt like hell for a while.
Well, so you were talking. I'm going to pivot off the Scorpio for a sec because we were talking about the eclipse that you experienced in the mountains in 2017.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's really interesting to me about this December 4th total solar eclipse is that it comes at the midpoint of that great American eclipse or North American eclipse cycle. So in August 21st, 2017, there was an eclipse that moved from, like you said, Oregon, Washington coast through the center of the country down to the Carolina coast. And then we have another one, April 8th, 2024, that moves from like Baja, Mexico, and up across to like Montreal, Quebec City. So where they cross is in the southern part of Illinois. And that area it's near Carbondale, Illinois, is the city that gets both. And that region of Illinois is called Little Egypt.
Wow.
For some reason. They call it, it's like Cairo, and there's a lot of, we've talked, I know you had Judith Kusal on talking about the giants. Like that part of Illinois has a lot of that giant energy here in the continent. And there is a way that, and you've had Sandra Walter on a bunch of times, which we probably, a lot of us follow her work. She was talking about the freedom and the eclipse codes. She works the western wing, if you will, of the continent over through Sedona and through her Mount Shasta zone. And I work the eastern wing, if you will, like from here, from the center over to New England. And then there's other friends I have that work down to Pilot Mountain and the whole that, there's two sides of this. So I was so curious about the midpoint of these two eclipses that I went and calculated it for myself. And the midpoint between the April 2024 and that's the 2017 is this December 14th.
What is? You're kidding?
No.
December 14th.
Mm-hmm. So it's December 14th this year, 2021.
So we're like in the core of the core.
We're in the middle point. So there's a way that this solar eclipse on December 4th is midpointing those two eclipse action. So that the eclipse corridor for me, that larger eclipse bookend, is all about the freedom codes and liberation and unlocking a lot of that energy on our continent. So maybe the Scorpio will help us bring some of that, transmuting some of the...
Right across North America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense to me because it feels like, Australia is kicking it off. Like, those protests in Melbourne.
Well, I did note that one of the places that can see is in Melbourne, and we all know what's happening there right now.
But when
human spirit politically, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So because I look at it from an energetic standpoint, when you have 30,000 people one week becomes 100,000, becomes 450,000. I don't know what's going to happen this weekend in the streets of Melbourne. I look at the energy of it, and then with what you're saying, the next thing that happens is this other occurrence across North America. And to me, that's kind of how it feels. It's almost like it starts where it started and it comes to the present, because the U.S. is such a cultural and, in all ways influencing by much greater standards than any other country. So the change in Australia happening where it started and culminating in the U.S., which is, let's just say, the biggest portal or whatever you want to call it, or energetically where people get the most information, or however you want to put it. Mm-hmm. It makes sense to me, because if you look at, Franco's, if you look at his intel and what he said was on the table, what would have been August or September, it was leading to 2023 and 2024 just being like what these formations or occurrences basically exhibit. So that's nice to know.
Yeah. So we're in that, if we all feel like we're hitting this, the midpoint is maybe the most squeezy, but it's also in some ways the 0 point. It's the still point where we, if you were talking about a pendulum swing from polarity, or it's the neutral point in the middle of the two polarities.
Yeah.
I wrote this down. See, I read all these little factoids down.
I was going to ask you, I need to ask you though, are you like a voracious reader and or video watcher? Or are you channeling right now, or both? I think it's both.
It's both. It's both.
When you do this, yeah.
I read. I mean, I feel, see, hear things for sure, but then I also do a lot of like the half hour I spent before getting on with you. I was like going through, and I was like, all right, I couldn't even, because my human, all of our brains are kind of getting scrubbed, and I couldn't even remember, like, for the magnet, like, does the North Pole go in on a magnet or out? Like, I was just before I come on with you,
most of us don't even consider that question. But it's funny you say that, because I saw this young man, Jamie, I can't remember his last name. He's from Australia. He was on 3 or 4 shows back. And I saw he put
something, maybe.
Jamie what?
I don't know.
Yeah, cool dude, very cool dude, very incredible story. I would recommend everybody go watch it. But anyway, I saw he put up a post, because I guess we friended on Facebook, and I saw this little few words he put up, and it was something like, "Hey, are any of y'all like experiencing like memory loss and such and such?" He just went down the list, because on the show he had just kind of woken up, but in a big way, and really just bawling out. I mean, but it was so funny. But yeah.
All right, so I have a couple things. So that whole we're talking about the North American eclipse.
Yeah.
To me, that is important to say this part too, that it's the merging of Lemuria and Atlantis, like taking those separate. We're talking about the soul aspects and the separation parts of the soul.
Yeah.
There's a way, and also divorcing or eliminating all the storylines about it, like clearing away all the storylines. I'm going to attribute this to one of my mentors. Like, Lisa Brown shared this piece a couple years back with us about how the eclipses work to demagnetize you from the storyline.
Right.
And, we all talk about the timelines and the storylines. It's like, if you shut that magnet off, all the things, the magnetic draw is what brings these same things back to your life. Like, we all get in these loops of patterns of whatever, not having enough money or having people be whatever to us, or, like whatever those things are that we want to change in our lives. They're a magnetic draw when we're stuck in cycles of them. And that could be true. I think a lot of people are magnetized to the storylines of what happened in Atlantis or what happened in Lemuria or all that. It's like, we can't be looking back anymore at all of that stuff.
Resist
it's like,
information.
what are we building forward? And so there's a way that, like, what we're about right now, and I talked about that, going to the different soul aspects and gathering your knowledge base. It's like, what's the technology that your Lemurian self used to conduct the highest light codes onto the planet? What's the technology that your Atlantean self used to conduct and transmit and receive light codes onto the planet? And forget all the bullshit and all the stories that happened and all the all that stuff. Like, demagnetize all those storylines and just bring in the crystal clear the good stuff, the technology that is ours again as we move back into the golden age.
Man, and this is badass. This is badass, what you're saying.
That, like, that eclipse thing, I was talking about the two wings in the North America, like, that is because Lemuria is considered Pacific Ocean-y, West Coast, and Atlantis is the Atlantic Ocean, East Coast here. And it's like, can we get to that merger point where they come together in us as us, and we take all that remembered technology, ancient technology, whether it's from, Star Elders or all that stuff. It's like, all my, for Todd, what are all Todd's key codes from Lemurian lifetimes, from Atlantis lifetimes, and let's bring them into this, this new Jerusalem, this the United States particularly, or North America, but anywhere on the globe, like, bring all that stuff to this here and now.
That's
to me,
right.
That's really what this eclipse thing is about.
Well, I mean, to me, that's what I'm saying. This is badass, because to me, I'm always looking for the most efficient, sensible, whatever navigating system every moment, every day. And what you just said makes the most sense to me now, because you can apply that every single moment about every single thing. And what I mean by that is, you're right. Not only do we look back in history, just say from a 3D standpoint, what do we read about? We read about all the blood and the guts and the shit and the lies, and right. Mm-hmm. But when you get code, and everyone gets it different, but a lot of people get it through past life memories, through connecting to a deity or an icon. But these are all things that came before us. We know this. And it's not about the story or even about the connection. It's about what that energy that's presented itself to you has to offer you, because it wants to serve you. That's why it's so important to ask. So you can ask any aspect, but I love what you're saying, because you're focusing on, and this is what we do even in our life, right? What we had to overcome, which is what we focused on, the failures, we focused on the bullshit, we were stuck on the story. And so, like you're talking about being demagnetized, I mean, to even be approaching that from a conscious level is to look at the gold, or like Judith says, the white flame, and you used the word white a minute ago. But yeah, this is all code. So, like, you go to Atlantis, you pull on your strengths, you pull on, everything is the other side of the spectrum. So yeah, I think this is a great,
right. Like, if you were a crystal grid keeper in Atlantis, if you're, like, whatever technology that you, like, all these stories, what they should really do is spark a memory inside our own cells, inside our own DNA codes,
right,
to unlock for the now.
Right.
So, like, what are we doing for the now? What are we building for the new? How are we creating this world that we want to live, that I want to raise my children in, that I want my grandchildren to come into? How are we building all these, the new way? And so the eclipse acts as this, like, or if you can see, like, all these particles of iron moving around in a sphere, and then, like, on a magnet, you think you just shut off the magnet and everything just drops away.
It's like a toroidal.
Yeah. But all the, like, story, all the particles of confusion, all the doubt, all the fears, all the everything.
don't you feel like that's been happening slowly, especially since early 2020? Like, does it feel like it's getting easier? Does it feel like it's getting more cohesive or fluid? Does it feel like if you keep yourself where you know to keep yourself?
Well, it's the work. It's the for me. I feel like that's my like highest calling and soul work right now is to truly get to a neutral place on so much of everything.
Yes.
And like everything that comes to you, and like people call the trigger thing or the this or something that like makes you judge another for whatever. That's just a noticing, like, oh, that's a place where I'm not neutral. I'm not
okay.
clear.
So if that's what I'm feeling, what Morgan's feeling, what I've heard some other, and you, I mean, it can't be a something that's just a limited thing. It's got to be happening everywhere. And I guess this is what you bring to the table is the relationship between what we're looking at in the stars and the cosmos and what's actually happening with us in our consciousness, becoming conscious of that and then living in consciousness of that. So this is what it makes me wonder, going back to your thing about look at the positive. I hate to put it that way. Don't look at the story, look at the place that you're connected to and look for, just like tapping into the Akashic, look for your strengths or look for what you learned or whatever the case is. But how many times on the earth, and I don't know the answer, I'm just putting the question out there because to me it's the gold. How many times has the entire world, for the most part, been totally conscious and talking about that relationship and connection to the stars and therefore, unity or oneness? I mean, that's colossal. That could be fucking amazing. We could be instantly manifesting and creating just like in dream state or on a cartoon.
To me, the stars come through, like the star codes are what help me spark and remember for me. Like they're the transmitters for this, like, and it's without any of the, and I don't, I know I did a little bit of the mythology, but for me, I don't go too much into the stories of any of it because it's all just like that human creation, right? Like some of the stories have the key codes and it's fine to like read about them and explore about them, but that's not, it's like, people are asking, like, why do I care about the star things, or why should I care? Why are you sharing all this stuff? It's like, just to me, the star codes are what sparkle my memories, my deep cellular DNA codes and memories of these. Like, it's like a sparkle dust coming and like, oh yeah, like I used to do this, or we used to do that way, or we used to like, you talked about the more and more of us awakening to these, it's ancient and future. It's like, I think we're getting coded from both, from the past ourself and our future selves, all like coming to this moment here.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit because it's a factoid I wrote down. Not even switching gears, but I was looking at where else on December 4th, where can you see the partial solar eclipse? And one of the places, do you know that there's 2 places, or maybe more than 2, but at least 2 places that are called Ascension Island?
Really?
So out in the middle of between South America and Africa, there is an island called Ascension Island. Whoa. And it was on the list of places that you can see the partial viewing of this solar eclipse, December 4th. And then when I was looking at the June 10th one, there's also an Ascension Island up in the Arctic in Canada, Nuvant, Banff Island, like way north. So there are 2 Ascension Island. Ascension Island could see the June total solar eclipse north, but the Ascension Island that's more in the southern, nearish the Falkland Islands.
It's just like a replication over and over again. You can see it everywhere. That's what I mean.
That was like, oh, Ascension, that obviously, if I'm looking at the places, Ascension Island, and I've noticed it before, but I haven't looked at it for years. I was like, oh, Ascension Island, that whole axis mundi, the like center.
Wouldn't that be cool? You were on one Ascension Island for one eclipse and then on the other. That would be like something that no one's ever done in the entire history of the world, right?
But the cool thing is, I think part of why we've all been developing our skill set of doing remote energy work, remote grid work, is like we can be on Ascension Island without actually like flying there. Like we are already just by talking about it on the 2 Ascension Islands. But sure, would I love to get on a little plane?
Wouldn't that be trippy?
Go to both? Sure. But I can be there. I can merge with those parts of the globe too and feel like I'm there.
Excellent conversation, man. I'm digging this. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's like the relationship we have with the celestial beings, the stars, the planets, and all that stuff. It's not a spoken relationship.
Not
There's
for me.
just this thing. If you, I don't mean to say like just meditate on it, but if you look at the whatever, you can not only connect to it, you can be there. I've done it many times, and it's not something I can prove to anybody, but just focusing on anything, you're going to merge with that.
Well, that's a long answer. You asked me, like, do I read a lot or do I channel? Like, I don't really say the channeling thing because it's like I merge with the information, the
Yeah.
body of, some people
Well,
would
what I
say like
mean, what I
reading
mean
the
by
Akashic or
what I mean by channeling is I can tell because I can relate to it in some way, and that is you have this information that you've come across, and you're right, and you merge, you get information. It just you don't know what it is at the time. It just comes when you need it, right? So when you start talking, because of the intricacy of your descriptions, and so I know you've looked at things consciously or viewed things consciously, read things, but at the same time I can see somehow how all your that information is coming out in alignment with something else, say your higher self or something, and the way it flows out of your mouth. It's just like a rapper or a poet slam, or what do they call it, poetry slam person, or anything. It's you can see it. It's cool. But I think that you're actually going to see more and more people that are going to be speaking in that way, where it's almost like an unconscious flow, like you.
well, hopefully the factoids are supporting of the larger higher self information for me, like, and not get lost in the mental,
No, I think that
like the
I
things,
think they
but
are, and I think it's a great example because in that space of flow, there is no questioning. It just comes out. I mean, have you ever like said something or done something and just go, man, can't believe I did that. It just came out, right?
oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like,
So it's
I
like
used to,
that.
for like a couple decades, I taught yoga classes, and I would always add this kind of like shamanic, celestial, like earth and sky. That was my thing. And like
Was it a
the things
dance?
that would come out of my
Was it
mouth
like
when
a
I was teaching. What?
was it like a belly dance?
Oh no, I didn't mean. I just talked with
Oh,
my hands because I was no, yeah, but I'm just saying in the times where I was teaching and like leading group, and still happens now in the energy field. Like if I'm leading a group meditation or channel or whatever, a group energy aligning experience. Yeah, the stuff
yeah,
that's one of the reasons why a lot of us do it. Is because the
yeah.
stuff that comes out of our mouth is for me, but I would be like amazed. I was like, "Whoa, what's coming through now?"
Well,
And like,
Ty
fun.
says Ty Hudnall. Ty Hudnall comes on. He's coming on again this month, as you are. I'm talking December. He says, it's a download when it's immediately shareable. And I can't think of anything more immediately shareable than to be in front of one person or more and having a conversation. Because the other thing it does, I think it grows, it expands, it's merging, I don't know what you want to call it, but it works. And what excites me is that more and more people consciously will be connected to everything. I mean, I can see it happening. How fast that happens, I don't know, but I think it could happen very, very fast. And the way these eclipses are laid out, which you talked about so far today, it lends to that, along with, I guess, channelings that the Sandras and the Francos and so on and so on have had.
It's cool, and this is one of the reasons I'm so grateful to have you as a friend and to have this platform to come on and have these conversations with you, because I always it helps to concretize the stuff like that's swimming around in my field.
Concretize. I like that
Like
word.
bring it into, like, I was like, oh, it comes, like, to have it come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Is it always comes through differently. It's not like I go through and like write down all the things we're going to talk, and not really. I just have like a little bit of notes of like, oh, I should talk about this and that. But it's great to bring it into its distilled, shareable. That's like where the potency comes.
Exactly.
So I brought these guys.
You did.
I have
Let me turn the music off. Let me turn the music off.
sure.
Hang on.
I noticed you commented under my post that I shared the other. So I have a set of tuning forks. I have 3 or 4 different sets. I do a lot of vibrational tuning here at Inner Space. I brought the Earth, Moon, and Sun forks over to my Zoom station here. if we wanted to do a little or big ol'
let's do it. I've never
vibrational.
done it before. I've never done any tuning
And
forks.
what I realized in this land of we do things on Zoom is fun is that the microphone that I have actually picks up the tuning forks better than almost the ear does. So they like it makes them sound. And then I got this puppy too. This is a Zen VibraPoint. So it's designed. It's a singing. It's a metal Himalayan / singing bowl, but it's designed to do acupressure or marma pressure. When I have people in person, it's like goes on the body and transmits. But anyway, in case you hear things like that,
That's
I'll
pretty
use that.
cool.
I'm just showing. I'm giving you a tour first of the things I'm going to use. And that's a different pitch, right?
Man, I'm going to get some singing bowls.
Oh, they're good. I know it's a worthwhile investment. Then we have the Earth. Can you hear that?
That's trippy.
Yeah.
Whoa, yeah, that's
so
cool.
These there was a Swiss mathematician. It's a tongue twister. Hans Crusoe that set frequencies, the cosmic octave, he calls them. So there was he had this download. He's kind of like, maybe I'm not saying like I'm like him, but one of me. He was under the stars during a Moon Pluto alignment, and he had this like, speaking of information.
Yeah, that sounds like some kind of sexual encounter.
Well, no, he just had this like, oh, maybe I could do this. He was a mathematician, but he was like codes. Yeah. But he was like, oh, I could plot the frequencies based on the orbits of the planets. So anyway, the frequency is like, any tuning fork can be set to any frequency we want, right?
So
like one of my sets is the solfeggio set or the chakras. Or
so what you're saying is he found the tone or the frequency of each one of them?
He wrote the mathematical formula for translating the velocity and speed of the orbit of the planets to hertz, to a frequency.
Wow.
And then people then have
that was sacred sexual energy. He created something. That's amazing.
And I'll do like a more formal. I'm just giving you a little tour first. This is the moon. So I think we're like in my science teacher, whatever capacity, right? We know that when the eclipse comes, it's the moon's shadow on the earth. So it's like you have the earth, the sun, and then the moon aligns just so. That's the sun. So are these audible?
Yeah.
Talking. Okay.
Here, I'm going to turn my mic off.
All right. So everybody want to relax back, and I can do a real nice energy tune alignment. Is that? I know that's cool with you, Todd. I didn't even have to ask. You'd rather hear me do this the whole time, maybe, than the talking.
We're good. We're going to get Robert Garcia in here, and
I can do this. It'll be like a few minute thing.
We're going to get Robert Garcia, see my brother out there, and put some beats in here pretty quick. I've been trying to talk him into it. He does some cool stuff. Yeah, this is cool, Julie. Let's go.
Well, I know Tom tried to get us together for that other time that I couldn't join in because of family stuff, but like I still like that idea of us doing a Soulogy sound party.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
Another one. I know they've done one already.
Right on. All right, you go ahead. I'm going to turn my mic off.
Okay. So if you're listening with us, it always helps me to close my eyes, soften the skin on the body, take some deep breaths, and let this sound bring you into your central channel, your axis mundi, your tower of power in your core. we'll bring in the codes of the sun. This is the frequency of the Earth planetary body. And now here's the Earth and Sun together. During an eclipse, the free flow magnetic exchange between the Earth and the Sun gets interrupted or shadowed by the moon. Sun, Earth, moon. With this alignment that's coming December 4th, and it's here for us now, and will be all week. Let it bring you into this place of neutrality, and let it demagnetize all of the things that get in the way, your stories, and let it clear your field completely.
Whoa. Those tones carry everything, right? That last one really felt like what's happening. It felt like you're shedding, but at the same time you're just blistering on fire, like, you know what I mean? Like exploding, like expanding. It's crazy. Such a rich, sharp tone.
Thank you, Todd, for the opportunity to share with everybody. And thanks to all the Soulogy fam for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm going to get like a set of 12 either singing bowls or tuning forks. I'm going to get a remote control, get a massage table, and just lay on it with my remote control and just work my body.
They have my friend Samantha, you had her on a couple months ago. She just
Samantha.
shared with me she has an app. I'll have to go find it, or maybe if she ever watches
What's her
this, she can
last
drop
name?
it. Rodriguez.
I can't
He's in
remember her name.
Mexico.
Yeah.
She's
Samantha. Yeah, she's been
Samantha.
on
She just
twice. Yeah,
shared. Yeah.
she's very cool. She's a cool lady.
She's super
Yeah.
cool. She's been doing a lot with her tuning forks lately and her tones. But she's shared. Not that you shouldn't get bowls and forks. Go do it. But she has an
Balls.
app on her phone. It's called Sonic something. So I'll go find it and drop it in the comments for the replay. But she found.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, like,
think tones.
because
I mean, they're.
I
I don't know.
teasingly say with my my client friends that come here, like, I need to develop my octopus self because you have to hold, like, I want to be doing more than 3 at a time. I'm like, I need extra hands. I like Curious George. So I want to put one in my toes and hold them, or
Spoken like a true mama bear.
yeah.
Who would know the details of these storybooks.
Like, wait, I can hold one with my toe and 2 with my hands. And like,
It sounds like you should collaborate with someone.
oh, sure.
I've seen some pretty cool collaborations like that were just done on the moment, like Romeo Barron and Shakina Rose.
Oh, yeah. Like in person. Like,
Yeah,
so
like
more,
just
get
when.
more hands instead of growing more limbs. I could just invite a
Yeah,
friend
well, you
over.
can do both.
Good idea, Todd.
If you want to grow limbs, I mean, as we expand and create
Get
to
my
the nth
starfish
degree,
body on.
I
Get more
want to make
limbs.
myself a little more attractive than 8 hands. Although that could be kind of interesting.
Speaking, you said deities. There's one of the Hindu deities has all the arms. Anyway,
Yeah, I've seen Morgan shapeshift into that before. I kid you not, on a very cool night.
right. I'll get that aspect on next time I get my full set. But yeah, get yourself some of these. They're really fun. In the, like you said, the
Well, there's something about the tones.
frequency,
The
the
tones.
vibrational tuning is
Yeah.
for me, it's the thing. Whether it's a vocal tone or a instrument.
Well, when you start putting them together, that's pretty trippy. You know, like that last one was huge. It sounded and felt like an eclipse.
That was my intention, so I'm glad it worked.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Well, it
sweet
was good
friend.
seeing you. We'll see you next month. Maybe, whenever. Did we schedule it already?
We have not.
Okay.
And a little dragon told me it's your birthday coming up soon too. So
369, man. It's my 60th birthday.
I heard that.
Is
Is there going to be a Soulogy party? What's going down?
I don't know.
We'll work on that behind the scenes.
I don't have anything scheduled. I just left that day open, Yeah. Maybe I'm going to try.
Well, happy early birthday, December brother, and thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Right on.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
All blessings to you and your beautiful children. And I don't know. Do you have any parting comments? Any advice as we head into the second half, evidently, of this eclipse period?
Yeah. Just stay true to your soul. We got this. It does get squeezy. The timeline squeeze is on, and it's just dial it always into the highest alignment, the highest outcome. Dial into the highest timeline for your own soul and your family and your being.
Right on.
Moment by moment, every second of the day. So if you have a thought that veers off of that highest, dial it back in.
Right on. That's right. Thank you, Julie. See you within 2 weeks. All right.
Love
Peace
it.
out, everybody.
Thank you.